They actually called the police on us a broken bar because our lawn was 3 inches tall. That's not an exaggeration, that's how it all began. A woman named Miley from the HOA reported us like we were committing some kind of public offense, just because she didn't approve of how our front yard looked. I think she expected us to apologize, cut the grass, and vanish quietly. What she didn't realize was we're not the type of family that backs down, and we certainly don't take kindly to being spied on. What followed next? It spiraled into something that tore apart the entire neighborhood. If you've ever had a neighbor from hell, you'll definitely want to keep listening, and let me know in the comments. Does any of this sound familiar? We'd only moved into Maple Grove Estates 3 weeks earlier, feeling hopeful about our new beginning in the suburbs. You know the type of place: pristine lawns trimmed like military haircuts, matching mailboxes straight out of a designer brochure, the whole suburban ideal gift trapped in a picket fence. My wife, Rachel, and I believed it would be a wonderful place for our kids, Tyler, our lively 10-year-old, and Jake, who's 12 and at that stage where everything parents say sounds like a conspiracy. We liked the safe streets, good schools, and the idea that our biggest concern would be picking vanilla or chocolate at the neighborhood ice cream party. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. There's always that one person who thinks a little authority gives them the right to torment others. In Maple Grove, that person was Miley Miller. As president of the HOA, Miley made her presence known with surgical precision. She was everywhere, clipboard in hand, monitoring everything like a hawk. She had this habit of eyeing houses like she was scoring them for a competition. Her little white dog, just a cover for her daily reconnaissance. That first week was eerily peaceful, too peaceful. We settled in slowly, room by room. We unpacked. The kids roamed the neighborhood like it was a new frontier. Rachel started jogging every morning along tree-lined paths that actually felt safe. I focused on getting the home office ready since we both work remotely and need absolute quiet, is something I didn't want to explain to nosy neighbors. It all seemed too perfect. Neighbors smiled as they passed in their spotless SUVs, kids played within view of ever-watchful parents, and sprinklers ticked on like clockwork. Then came the letter. It wasn't handed over with a friendly smile. It was stuffed in the mailbox like a notice from court. No community welcome, no pool invite, just a formal violation notice citing our grass. It came complete with measurements, photographs, and enough legal jargon to make it sound like we were enemy agents. 2 inches above code. It's like we were endangering the entire suburb with rogue grass. The letter was on official HOA letterhead, signed with flair, and came with a lengthy document outlining community standards that read like it belonged in a courtroom. I figured I'd get to it over the weekend, but work got hectic and it slipped my mind. 3 days later, Rachel noticed something that made both of us stop in our tracks. "Come look at this," she called from the kitchen window, her voice carrying the pitch that tells you something's seriously wrong. I glanced outside and saw Hira Miley crouched by our mailbox, literally measuring the grass with a tape measure like it was a crime scene. She wore khakis and a polo shirt like some HOA field agent on patrol, clipboard in one hand, what looked like a professional-grade camera in the other. When she realized we were watching, she bolted to her SUV and sped away like she'd just robbed a bank, tires screeching. Who does that? Who goes around measuring someone else's lawn in broad daylight? Rachel and I just stared at each other in disbelief. Was that even real? She asked, and I didn't know how to answer. Normal people don't carry measuring tools through the neighborhood like weapons. Normal HOA leaders don't crouch in front yards with photographic equipment like they're building a case file. It was surreal, like a skit, only it was actually happening, and it was targeting us. The next morning, a new notice was taped to our door, but this one felt different, cold and threatening. It wasn't a reminder, it was a final warning. Violation number 2847. It was signed by Miley Miller, HOA president, with the same dramatic signature as before. This time, she included a $200 fine. The paperwork, more complex than our mortgage, and all because of grass that had grown during a week of non-stop rain. But what really caught my eye was that number 2847. How many citations had she issued? Was she running a full-blown HOA citation machine? That's when I started keeping records, a running log of everything, every note, Every odd encounter, every detail. Time, date, what happened, who witnessed it. It's something I picked up from work, a habit of documenting everything, just in case you need proof later. Back then, I wondered if I was just being overly cautious. Maybe this was all just standard suburban red tape. Maybe I should have just paid the fine, kept quiet, and tried to fit in. But there was something in that letter, a broken bar, something hostile and calculated, and I knew I had to get to the bottom of it. What we were up against became clearer with each passing day. The tone in the letters wasn't just strict, it was calculated, almost hostile. This wasn't a polite reminder to tidy up the yard. It was a veiled threat dressed up as administrative procedure. Then on Tuesday, Tyler came home with a look on his face I'll never forget, ashen and anxious. Broken bar. There's this woman, a broken bar. She's been asking about us. About when we come and go, what cars we drive. She's been asking everyone. My heart sank. Questions about work hours and vehicle models, over a patch of overgrown grass. That's when it hit me, we weren't just dealing with an obsessive HOA president obsessed with keeping the block pristine. This was something deeper, more invasive. This woman was compiling data on us like we were being profiled for a criminal investigation. Why would anyone need to know our routines? Unless they were planning something that required knowing when we weren't home. Then Thursday came, and so did another letter. The third one. It had harsher language than before, now laced with legal jargon and promises of forced compliance if we didn't act within her stated time frame. The wording had shifted entirely. It was now assertive, almost militaristic. This was no longer your average HOA fuss. This was methodical, predatory. It felt like someone was following the script of someone who had done this before. Rachel sat across from me that evening, flipping through each letter carefully. I could see her mentally connecting dots, assembling a wider narrative. She's escalating unusually fast, Rachel said slowly, her eyes scanning the formatting and signatures. This doesn't feel like a one-time thing. It's too polished, too professional. She was right. The documents were immaculately typed, numbered sequentially, formatted like legal filings. Whoever wrote these had experience. I joked that maybe Miley had a secret passion for suburban landscaping law, but even as I said it, I knew better. This wasn't about grass. It was a targeted operation, and for some unknown reason, Anna Dramanest had decided we were her next subject. But why us? We were new. We minded our business. What made us different? Jake added a chilling detail during dinner that evening. One of the younger kids in the neighborhood mentioned to him that the lady with the clipboard had been taking photos of our house at different angles, different times of day, sometimes even from the park across the street. She told him she was gathering documentation for HOA records, Jake said, but he said it looked more like spy photos, official records. That phrase echoed in my mind like a siren. What kind of neighborhood paperwork needed that kind of surveillance? What kind of regulation violation required photographic logs like we were suspects? Rachel and I locked eyes across the table. This wasn't just overreach. It was harassment, coordinated, cold, done by someone with a background in intimidation and control. Friday evening confirmed everything I feared. The community bulletin board had a new notice pinned up, a bold, dramatic, and entirely uncalled for emergency HOA meeting, addressing dangerous precedents. Over long height. The language was so sensational, it made it sound like our family was a threat to public safety. I read it 3 times, hoping I was misunderstanding it, but my gut told me the truth. This was no longer about neighborhood policy. This was a smear campaign launched and led by Anna Dramanest. The night of the meeting, the community center didn't feel like a shared space. It felt like a courtroom. The air was heavy with judgment and accusation. Annie had gone all out. Projector, microphone, poster boards on easels. She even had a laser pointer for a slideshow about yard violations. She wore a charcoal business suit, her hair pulled back so tightly she looked like a prosecuting attorney on a courtroom TV drama. And although there were only 30 people in the room, she tested the mic like she was preparing to deliver a presidential address. The chairs were set up in tidy rows facing a podium where Anna stood, presiding over her fabricated case like a judge and jury rolled into one. The presentation setup was far beyond what you'd expect for a simple neighborhood meeting. It looked more like a legal deposition than a suburban gathering. 30 confused neighbors wandered in, most of them clearly baffled about why their Thursday night was being spent in a meeting about grass. An elderly woman checked her watch repeatedly, clearly annoyed. A younger guy sat near the back, wearing the expression of someone who would gladly trade places with a dentist chair. Everything about the room screamed intimidation. This wasn't just a warning. It was theater. The room had been arranged to isolate anyone who dared disagree, and Anna Dromanest knew exactly how to exploit it. What followed wasn't a discussion, it was a public prosecution. She began with a speech that could have passed for a courtroom opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen, we face a crisis, a one that strikes at the very heart of what makes Harmony Ridge a model community. A crisis over grass. Then she clicked to a slide, an aerial image of the neighborhood, pulled from some city database no doubt, but our house was circled in red like a suspect in a manhunt, labeled, annotated. Our property presented like exhibit A in a criminal trial. Property values rely on standards. Standards rely on compliance. Compliance requires consequences. She let each phrase hang in the air like gospel, pausing between them as if she were reciting from scripture. This wasn't about community harmony. It was about control, and Anna Dromanest was determined to establish her reign. Her voice was calculated, her slides designed like a corporate presentation, clean, impactful, and unsettlingly professional. This wasn't her first time. She had charts, timelines, even visual infographics comparing our lawn to the neighbors. Everything was structured, rehearsed, almost weaponized. Slide after slide, we watched our home dissected. Photos taken from every possible angle, charts illustrating grass height variations, timestamps suggesting near daily check-ins. It wasn't enforcement, it was surveillance. And not just ordinary photos, there were shots taken at sunrise, others captured from the nearby park, and some from such tight zoom angles they had to be shot with a telephoto lens. A few even appeared to have been taken from neighboring driveways, likely with permission. She'd been tracking us since we moved in. How many mornings had she been up before dawn just to catch the dew on our supposedly non-compliant grass? I felt a chill crawl up my spine. An elderly neighbor across the aisle shifted in her chair, visibly uneasy. Anna, this feels a broken bar excessive. This isn't lawn care, it's bordering on stalking. Thank God someone had the courage to say it out loud. Until that moment, I'd thought I was the only one hearing the alarm bells. And his response was a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Your property value has increased 18% since these standards were introduced. Are we really willing to risk that by allowing dangerous precedents to go unchecked? It wasn't a defense. It was a threat, thinly veiled and delivered like a seasoned intimidator. Comply or lose value. Submit or pay. Then a young neighbor, voice barely above a whisper, raised a hand. What exactly was the difference? Like a broken bar, how much over were they? Anna clicked to the next slide without missing a beat. A close-up photo of a measuring tape held beside our grass at 3.22 inches. The caption read versus the regulation 2.5 inches. The level of precision was absurd. Forensic. In landscaping, she declared, precision matters. Chaos begins with compromise. The room stirred with murmurs. You could feel people starting to realize just how deep her obsession ran. She wasn't checking once. She was measuring regularly, likely multiple times a week, using calibrated tools and recording every instance with timestamped accuracy. It was no longer about compliance. It was about obsession, control. One slide showed individual grass blades magnified, measurements annotated to the 1/10 of an inch like evidence in a federal case. Then came the bombshell. I propose increasing fines for repeat violations to $1,000. Anna Dromanest declared with the finality of a lawmaker. And I further propose mandatory weekly inspections for non-compliant properties, conducted by certified third-party evaluators at the homeowner's expense. The room fell silent. No one was laughing now. Everyone realized what this was. Not a homeowners meeting, but a power grab cloaked in regulation, led by someone who had clearly done this before. Now the room buzzed, not with polite concern but with real unease and barely masked outrage. $1,000 weekly inspections of private property? Several neighbors exchanged wary glances. Suddenly, it wasn't just about us anymore. Anyone could be next on Anna Dromanest's hit list. This wasn't about keeping the neighborhood tidy. This was about power, a complete, unaccountable authority over every inch of community life. She wasn't leading a neighborhood association, she was building a tiny surveillance state, with herself as judge, jury, and enforcer. Then a longtime resident stood up, voice shaking but determined. "Anna, isn't there a process for this? Warnings, reviews, appeals? This feels like we're skipping basic due process." But Anna didn't flinch. She flicked her hand dismissively, like swatting away a fly. "The process is what failed us," she said coolly. "Look at the evidence." She pointed to a blown-up image of our home, once again plastered across the screen like a suspect's mugshot. 3 violations, escalating defiance, and now they're conducting counter-surveillance on law-abiding neighbors. The counter-surveillance? It hit me. She'd seen me take photos of Hira documenting her behavior and twisted it into some kind of conspiratorial attack. The paranoia in her voice wasn't just paranoia anymore, it was dangerous delusion. She actually believed we were mounting an operation against her. All we had done was gather evidence of her harassment, a reasonable step any sane person would take under constant pressure. And yet, here she was, flipping reality upside down, accusing us of her behavior, playing the victim, when she was clearly the aggressor. People in the room were shifting uncomfortably now, trading glances, their earlier support cracking. Anna's mask was slipping, revealing the tightly wound control freak beneath the curated exterior. When it was my turn to speak, I stood calmly, no emotion, no edge. I wasn't going to give her what she wanted. "We appreciate the community's attention to maintenance. We'll take care of the lawn this weekend." Short, neutral, undeniable, no fireworks, no drama, no fuel for her fire. And I saw her face falter, just slightly, but it was there. She'd expected a fight, a meltdown, a scene she could twist into her narrative. Instead, we gave her silence, obedient but unreadable silence. She had nothing. As we moved to leave, weaving through small groups murmuring in confusion and discomfort, I caught her whispering to a man near the exit, a gray suit, tight jaw. "Not a neighbor. We need to escalate," she muttered. "They're not who they say they are." I froze. "Escalate? Phase 2? Phase what? What the hell kind of HOA president had phases for dealing with neighbors?" The man scribbled notes into a small black notebook. Calm, precise, not the kind of guy you see weeding flower beds on weekends. Who was he? What neighborhood committee had agents in suits and surveillance checklists? This wasn't normal HOA nonsense anymore. This was covert, coordinated, chilling. As we walked home under the streetlights, Jakey, my 12-year-old, finally asked the question that had been gnawing at all of us. "Why does she hate us so much?" "We just moved here." Before I could come up with a comforting lie, Rachel gasped and grabbed my arm. Our house was dark, the curtains drawn, but there was a figure in our backyard, flashlights sweeping methodically along the fence line, measuring garden borders, photographing plants, using what looked like professional tools. It was her. Anna Dramenest, in our yard at 9:30 p.m., crouched near the hydrangeas with a leveling stick and a clipboard. We rushed outside, flashlights in hand. "Routine compliance inspection," she said flatly, as though that made it okay. But she had no authorization, no permission, no explanation. "Ma'am," Rachel said firmly, voice like cold steel, "this is trespassing." Anna backed off slowly, calmly but with a defiant grin. "I'll find something," she muttered, almost to herself. "There's always something, always." And that's when I knew. She'd done this before. How many families had she broken down, exposed, humiliated just like this? How many weak spots had she found and weaponized? That night, I made a decision. We weren't playing defense anymore. We would gather our own intelligence, build our own network, and when the time was right, we would expose Anna Dramenest for exactly what she was. Rachel started jogging new routes through the neighborhood, subtle, natural, chatting with joggers, walkers, gardeners. She never asked questions about Anna directly, she just listened and remembered. I joined weekend cleanup crews, helped seniors with yard work, coached soccer with Jake. We weren't just gathering information, we were earning trust, watching, waiting, because now, we had a mission, and we were no longer alone. People talk when they feel Safia, and I'm a good listener. You'd be surprised what you learn just by being present and paying attention. Within a week, we had a clearer picture of the neighborhood than many people who'd lived here for years. Tyler and Jake, without even realizing it, became our quiet intel team, our eyes and ears at school and in the park. They'd come home from soccer or bike rides full of chatter, little things they'd heard, noticed, or been told in passing. To them, it was just harmless gossip, but to us, it was gold. Kids hear everything adults think they're hiding, and they repeat it with stunning clarity over dinner details any professional investigator would envy. A longtime resident told us that Anna Dramenest had once pushed a family to the brink until they finally sold their house and moved. Another neighbor confided that Anna might be receiving kickbacks from the neighborhood maintenance company. One family admitted they paid extra discretionary finesse not because they were guilty, but because they were afraid. The boys didn't understand the weight of what they were reporting, but Rachel and I did. We were watching a pattern unfold, deliberate, strategic, ruthless. Within 2 weeks, we had a full map of Anna's operation. And it was worse than anything I had imagined. This wasn't just some overbearing HOA president. This was systematic extortion, neighborhood-wide. Another longtime resident finally opened up. Anna had arrived 3 years ago, immediately ran for HOA president in unopposed and got to work. She'd start by targeting certain families. They'd receive warning letters, then citations, then fines, escalating pressure until they caved or sold, usually below market value. The cycle was always the same. New family moves in, there's a honeymoon period of friendly hellos, smiles, nothing out of place. Then the violations start. Mysterious complaints, random fines, unrelenting harassment. One neighbor even told us that the previous owners of our house left after 18 months of constant pressure. Another family admitted they were still paying Anna's bogus fines just to avoid attention. We can't afford to move, they said, so we just pay. That's when we saw it clearly. Anna Dramenest wasn't just harassing people, she was flipping them, pushing them to sell under stress, and then profiting from it. But how? The missing link came from Tyler. He was working on a school project about property ownership and needed to look up real estate records. Dad, he said one evening, I was looking at the county records for class. Did you know Anna's brother owns a real estate company? They bought all 3 houses that sold after people left our street. There it was, family real estate ties, below-market acquisitions, manufactured pressure leading to forced sales. Rachel and I stared at each other. It all clicked. Then Jake chimed in. He'd overheard someone at the park say that Miller Property Services, the company that gets all the hose maintenance contracts, had the same last name as Anna. We double-checked. Sure enough, Anna's family was not only flipping houses, they were collecting fees through HOA-funded contracts, financial fraud through shell companies, kickbacks, property acquisition, systematic harassment. She wasn't just running a scam, she was operating a criminal enterprise, using the HOA as a front for money laundering. But the real smoking gun came from one of Rachel's morning jogs. She'd struck up a conversation with an elderly neighbor, the kind who'd been here longer than anyone. That woman reminds me of someone from back in Phoenix, he said. Same attitude, same control issues. She ran in HOA scam out there too, until an investigation shut her down overnight. Phoenix, sudden departure. That night, I dove into the archives, and there it was, buried in whole lawsuits and regional newspaper clippings from 4 years ago. Anna Dramenest, former president of Desert Vista HOA, Phoenix, under active investigation for embezzlement and property fraud. She vanished right before charges could be filed. She'd done this before. Phoenix wasn't her first neighborhood, and we weren't her first targets. The pattern stretched across 4 different cities, millions in fake fines, underhanded contracts, and manipulated home values. Each time, she'd create chaos, feed off it, then vanish. Like a parasite, a locust, devouring what she could before skipping town. But this time, Anna Dramenest made a fatal mistake. She didn't just pick a new neighborhood. She picked the wrong family, and she was using the same scam, broken bar on people who specialize in exposing financial crime. As Anna's criminal history sprawled across my desk that night, one thing became crystal clear: we weren't her first victims. But if I had anything to say about it, we'd damn well be her last. That Monday morning, Anna escalated things past HOA politics. What happened next would change everything. I was working from my home office when the flashing lights appeared. No sirens, just the unmistakable pulse of squad car strobes. the kind that make curtains twitch and neighbors drift outside, eager for drama. Through the blinds, I saw two officers, and Anna Dramenest. She stood beside them, animated, pointing directly at our house like she was coordinating a tactical raid. Her arms flailed, her voice carried. She was desperate to convince them we were some sort of imminent threat to the community. I sighed and calmly walked to the bedroom safe, pulled out our home emergency folder, federal credentials, field office contacts, documentation, protocols. Rachel did the same from her home office without saying a word. If Anna Dramenest wanted to involve law enforcement, she was about to find out why that was a catastrophic miscalculation. The officers who approached were veterans, calm, alert, experienced, not rookies looking to prove something. And from their posture, it was already clear, they weren't buying what Anna was selling. This wasn't a real emergency. They were here because a loud, persistent woman had demanded it. "Mr. Henderson, we received reports of a possible domestic disturbance and suspicious activity at this address," one officer said. "Domestic disturbance?" I glanced over my shoulder at the scene behind me, Rachel typing at her desk, the boys doing homework at the kitchen table. The only sound in the house was the faint clicking of keys and pencil on paper. "Officers, we've been working from home all morning," I replied. "What kind of disturbance are we talking about?" Anna jumped in before they could respond. "They have people coming and going at odd hours, loud conversations, and they refuse to comply with community standards." "Strange hours," I repeated. "She's referring to grocery deliveries and work conference calls." I watched the lead officer's expression as he listened. Skepticism, thinly veiled irritation. His partner jotted notes, but his body language said it all. He was documenting Anna, not us. They'd seen this before. Residents who use the police like a weapon in personal vendettas. "Ma'am," the second officer asked, careful but firm, "what specific laws do you believe are being broken here?" Anna's answer: "They're deliberately defying authority. Their grass is still too long, and now they're conducting surveillance on neighbors." Surveillance. That's when I realized that she'd seen me documenting her behavior and panicked. She thought she was being watched because she had something to hide. That's the thing about guilty people. They assume everyone else sees what they're trying so hard to bury. "Ma'am," the lead officer said in that polite, tired tone used for problem callers, "HOA violations aren't criminal matters unless there's property damage or a safety concern." But Anna wasn't done. "What about their work situation?" she pressed. "They say they work from home, but they get official-looking mail and take secure calls." She was now admitting she'd been monitoring our mail and listening to our phone conversations. She didn't realize it, but she'd just confessed it to two police officers. Exactly the kind of behavior that constituted criminal stalking. I couldn't believe it. She was handing us the case against her, one reckless sentence at a time. The officers exchanged a long glance, and I knew what that meant. They'd seen everything they needed to. "Officers," I said, stepping forward with our documentation folder, "I'd like to formally report systematic harassment by Anna Dramenest, including trespassing, unauthorized surveillance, and mail monitoring." The lead officer opened the folder. Inside, dates, photos, statements, timeliness, everything precise, professional, and irrefutable. As he flipped through each page, his expression shifted. This wasn't a neighbor squabble anymore. This was a multi-layered harassment case with federal implications. "Mrs. Nest," he said, tone cooling, "photographing private property without consent and interfering with mail could fall under state stalking laws." Anna's smile faltered for the first time. Her polished persona cracked, the warmth drained from her face, replaced by a steely calculation like a predator scanning for exits. "I'm protecting this community," she snapped. "I have every right to enforce standards." But the officers weren't nodding anymore. They weren't listening. They'd heard enough. "You're entitled to file formal complaints through the appropriate HOA channels," the officer replied, firm and final, "but you are not entitled to trespass, monitor private conversations, or tamper with someone's mail." They turned to leave, but just before stepping off the porch, the lead officer paused, eyes catching the federal parking tag on Rachel's car, visible through the garage window. He looked at me, just for a moment, and in that brief glance, I knew, Anna Dramenest had officially picked the wrong family to mess with. There was a moment of silent recognition between the officers, a shared understanding. He didn't know everything, but he knew enough. We weren't just ordinary suburban homeowners. "Mr. Henderson," the lead officer said quietly, "if the harassment continues, contact us directly." Immediately after they left, Anna Dramenest stood in our driveway, visibly humiliated, her composure fraying, her jaw clenched, her eyes burned with fury. Around her, the neighbors who had gathered to watch were whispering to each other, no longer sympathetic. They'd seen enough. They saw her clearly now. "You think you've won?" she snapped. "I have connections in this city way above local police." Connections? What kind of influence did she think she had? Rachel stepped outside. "Anna, what exactly are you threatening?" But Anna was already stalking away, phone to her ear, muttering fast and low. We could still catch fragments drifting back on the breeze. "They're not what they seem. A broken bar need immediate action. A broken bar, higher level response. A broken bar." That was the moment I knew. This was no longer a neighborhood feud. It was a coordinated campaign, and Anna Dramenest had just activated it. From that point forward, I became obsessed with documentation. Every word, every move, every shift in her behavior. The logbook wasn't just a tool anymore. It was a lifeline, my control, my evidence. That evening, I noticed the usual parked surveillance car had been replaced. Now it was a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. Not a neighbor's vehicle. Professional surveillance. Someone with reserve and clearance was watching us. Anna Dramenest's connections weren't idle threats. They were mobilizing. Tyler came home that evening pale, visibly shaken. Broken bar, he said slowly. "Anna's been asking about us again, but this time a broken bar. She's asking about your work schedule." The pit in my stomach dropped. The black sedan, the questioning, the urgency in her call. She wasn't bluffing. She had access to something dangerous and was using it. It was time to stop playing ho detective. We needed real action. I picked up the secure phone Tuesday morning. "This is Agent Henderson, badge 7492. I need a full background workup on Anna Miller, Phoenix origin, current location known, focus on financial crimes and property fraud." 6 hours later, the encrypted report came through. And it was worse than we'd imagined. Phoenix wasn't her first con. Anna Dramenest had been running ho scams across 4 states over 8 years. Dozens of families financially ruined. Entire communities dismantled. It was a pattern. Move in, take control of the ho, and weaponize it against selected residents. And we were just her latest target. But now we had a roadmap. The pattern never changed. Rig unopposed elections to control the ho board. Harass chosen families until they sell below market. Funnel homes to connected buyers. Launder the money through fake maintenance contracts and bogus service fees. Except this time, in Phoenix, Anna got sloppy. She left a trail, paperwork, signatures, timelines. She was forced to flee once a retired detective started compiling evidence for a federal case. That detective, still tracking her, still watching, now working as a private investigator. Rachel reached out. He agreed to a secure call. What he told us shook everything. "She's not working alone," he said. "There's a whole syndicate behind here, property flippers, fake contractors, even corrupt city officials greasing the regulatory gears, a network, national, corporate fronts, fake LLCs, even quiet links into government agencies." The scale was massive, more than $2 million in confirmed fraudulent transactions. Rachel asked the question we were both thinking: why hasn't she been arrested? The detective sighed. "She never stays long. Jurisdictional gaps, shell companies, legal insulation, boot to broken bar if you get her on federal charges. Mail fraud, wire fraud, racketeering, conspiracy. You bring down everything." Now we understood. This wasn't personal. It was organized crime, and our quiet neighborhood just became ground zero for a takedown. We stopped looking for petty infractions and focused on federal crimes, because now we weren't just defending our home, we were dismantling a criminal enterprise. And the unlikeliest ally helped break it. Opina Tyler. It happened Wednesday night during dinner. He said it casually, like it didn't mean anything. "Dad, I saw Anna at the park yesterday. She was with 2 guys. They handed her a big envelope. She gave them something back, a physical exchange. In a public space, with witnesses. It could be the evidence we needed, a proof of an active conspiracy. I installed surveillance equipment that night, professional grade, legally mounted on our property. We monitored public spaces. Nothing illegal, but everything admissible: audio, video, long distance, high-res, all tied to timestamps and GPS. While I handled surveillance, Rachel turned to the financials. She was about to expose what Andromeda thought she'd buried right inside the HOA's books. Invoices from fake maintenance companies, shady property transfers. The money trail was getting clearer by the hour. Each document, each irregularity, each signature, it was all leading us somewhere much bigger. But the deeper we dug, the more I began to fear what we'd actually uncover about Andromeda's true intentions. The breakthrough came thanks to Jakey. His curiosity and tech skills unearthed what none of us expected. "Dad," he said, "I was researching for my economics project and found something weird. A broken bar and his company Andromeda Property Services has the same business license number as 3 companies in other states. That's not normal, right?" It wasn't just abnormal, it was criminal. Same crime ring, different names, spanning across state lines, federal jurisdiction. Confirmed. Business filings told the real story. A sophisticated shell network, built to move money, obscure ownership, and conceal illegal activity. Different facades. One puppet master. That night, our surveillance equipment recorded Andromeda at the park with 2 men. We captured crystal clear audio. The panic in her voice was unmistakable. "The Henderson situation is spiraling. They're asking too many questions. People are listening now. Can your police contacts shut them down?" I tried. One of the men replied, "But they're clean." "Too clean." "I think a broken bar. I think they might be law enforcement." Bingo. She suspected us. That changed everything. Her voice trembled, and not with anger, but fear. Real, bone-deep fear. She was losing control, and that made her unpredictable. Dangerous. We watched her unravel in real time. "We need to move the operation," the second man said. "Transfer funds, close accounts, disappear before they build a case we can't beat." They were planning to vanish maybe within hours. We had one chance to stop it, one trap to set. That recording gave us everything: the scope of the scam, their escape plan, their fear, and, most critically, confirmation that she was activating her wider network. Andromeda wasn't just calling in her HOA cronies anymore. Someone else had entered the picture, a higher level, a more dangerous one. That same night, I discovered a file buried deep in the financial records. It connected Anna to something even darker. This was no longer just about fines or fences or late fees. She knew or believed that we were federal agents. That made her both reckless and predictable. Cornered criminals always overreach. We were going to weaponize that panic. We crafted a scenario that would force Anna to reveal everything through her own decisions. Phase 1. Make her believe a major investigation was closing in. I converted our garage into a mock federal task force hub. Nothing illegal, but everything suggestive. Monitors, communication gear, filing cabinets, the kind of setup that looked too official to ignore. Jake dropped the bait the next morning at the bus stop. "My dad's been on the phone a lot lately, something about evidence and investigations." It worked faster than we expected. By that afternoon, Andromeda was parked across the street, long lens camera aimed directly at our house. She believed we were building a Kazi, and she was scrambling to find out how far it had gone. Her surveillance was erratic, rushed, and obvious. She was operating from pure fear now. Phase 2. Force her to contact her network. Rachel began quietly seeding rumors through neighborhood chat groups. "The Hendersons are acting weird. Lots of visitors. Something big's going down this weekend." If Anna thought we were about to make a move, she'd panic, and panic she did. Surveillance picked her up in the front yard, pacing, phone in hand, issuing rapid-fire calls. "Call 1. They're federal agents. I need extraction protocols now." "Call 2. Transfer everything to backup accounts. Shut down Andromeda Property Services by Friday." "Call 3. The one that made my stomach turn. If they're building a Kazi broken bar, we need to eliminate the problem before they can testify." Eliminate the problem, a direct threat against federal agents. Caught on camera, clear audio, timestamped, admissible. She didn't know it, But Anna Dramanest had just handed us everything we needed to dismantle her entire operation. But she wasn't finished unraveling. That same evening, she called for an emergency home meeting, agenda, discussing criminal threats in the community. She was going to try and out us, publicly, surrounded by neighbors, in front of witnesses. She would try to name us as federal agents, thinking it would discredit us. But in doing so, she'd be openly acknowledging our identities. Proof she knew who we were. Proof she understood the risk. Proof of intent to interfere with federal operations. She was building our entire case for USA and didn't even realize it. I was exhausted. Every nasty note, every hostile stare from neighbors, every shred of community trust stripped away. But now, it was worth it, because Anna Dramanest was about to bring down her entire imperium with her own hands. I looked at Rachel and the boys and I knew giving up wasn't an option. The meeting that night was packed. Confused neighbors filled every seat. Miley came in like a prosecutor on a mission, armed with visual aids, zoomed-in photos of our house, maps of our movements, even a bogus timeline linking our arrival to supposed federal actions in other cities. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, like a judge about to sentence us. "The Henderson family is not who they claim to be." Gasps echoed through the room. One elderly neighbor clutched her chest. A young couple exchanged wide-eyed glances. "I have evidence," Miley continued, "that they are harassing law-abiding citizens under false pretenses." She was accusing USA undercover federal agents of civil rights violations, even as she openly admitted to investigating our identities through illegal channels. Then Tyler, calm as ever, raised his hand. "Miley," he asked, "how do you know so much about federal investigations?" She froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. The room caught it. Her self-assured smirk faded. "Important people who keep our community safe from government overreach," she muttered. "Safe from what exactly?" I asked. "Are you suggesting our neighborhood is under federal threat?" Neighbors we'd waved to for months now avoided eye contact. Whispers followed me on walks. Miley had weaponized the neighborhood, and we were the targets. But now, she was spiraling. Her pitch-perfect presentation collapsed under its own contradictions. She abruptly ended the meeting. "This community will thank me when the truth comes out." But the truth was already out. Our equipment had captured every word. Our backup team, stationed in unmarked vehicles outside, monitored everything. Rachel held me together. She managed the files, tracked the documents, reminded me why this mattered. I called in a favor, an attorney known for dismantling corrupt HOA boards. When Miley stormed out that night, we knew one of two things would happen: her arrest, a broken bar, or her final, desperate play. That came early Friday morning. The alarm system blared at 4 a.m. Cameras lit up. Miley and two men were in our backyard, gasoline in hand. They weren't just destroying evidence, they were about to commit arson with us inside. Rachel triggered emergency protocols. Within minutes, federal teams surrounded our home in a quiet, tactical net. Caught red-handed. Accelerant, ignition timers, masks. It wasn't just fraud anymore, it was attempted murder of federal agents. And we let them make one last mistake before moving in. By sunrise, flashing lights brought out every neighbor. News vans pulled up as agents secured evidence and local police kept the crowd back. In cuffs, Miley made her final plea for sympathy. "These people are government spies who infiltrated our community." Perfect. She had just confirmed our identity on camera while being arrested for trying to kill us. I stepped forward, my badge visible. "Special Agent Owen Henderson, Homeland Security, Financial Crimes Division." Gasps. Rachel joined me. "Special Agent Rachel Henderson." "Same division." Miley's eyes widened. The entire house of cards she built collapsed in real time. I uploaded every letter, every secret meeting, every HOA violation video into a single edit. "When the HOA president thinks she owns you." Then I addressed the stunned neighbors and cameras. "For 6 months, we've conducted a multi-state undercover investigation into financial crimes using HOA corruption as a cover." And elderly neighbor's mouth dropped open. "You mean those maintenance contracts were fake?" "Yes." "Miley Miller has stolen over $2.5 million across 4 states in 8 years. That day, arrests continued. Her entire network of property buyers, shell companies, corrupt inspectors fell on coordinated sweeps. Even a retired detective flew in from Phoenix. 8 years. he said to reporters. 8 years we've hunted this crew. As Miley was loaded into the transport van, she screamed one final warning. You'll never stop us. The network is bigger than you think. Rachel turned to her calmly. Actually, a broken bar we already did. 18 arrests, 4 states, financial records recovered. Your network is done. That final presentation? I walked into a packed room with a flash drive. First slide, Miley screaming about mailbox color. She got 25 years. Fraud, laundering, conspiracy, attempted murder of federal agents. Her partners got 5 to 15 each. The case was called one of the most sophisticated HOA fraud busts in federal history. The residents, fully reimbursed to $67,000. A retired teacher became the new HOA president. This time, with actual oversight and fair rules. And us, we stayed. The neighbors saw us differently now, heroes who gave up normal life to protect communities. Tyler and Jake, local legends. Rachel runs every morning now and no one follows. I mow the grass at exactly 2.5 inches, just because I can. I even laugh doing it. Our veggie garden, it used to spell smile, now it says justice. Visible from Miley's old house, which is for sale, no fraud included. 6 months later, Rachel and I accepted the Attorney General's Award for Excellence in Financial Crimes Investigation. Sometimes justice is fast, sometimes it grows as slowly as grass. Miley picked the wrong house. She thought we were just another family to push around. She got federal agents. Bad call, Miley. Very bad call. Funny thing is, the grass still grows. The mailbox is still slightly crooked, a broken bar, and we're still here. Last I heard, Miley moved 3 neighborhoods over. Fewer cameras, maybe. But 2 weeks ago, we got an anonymous letter. Compliance check pending. Rachel thinks it's a prank. I'm not so sure. And honestly, it doesn't matter, because whether it's Miley or someone else, there's always going to be another clipboard, another fake rule, another person who thinks they can bully others quietly. But not anymore. Now, we've got records, eyes open, neighbors who ask questions. Justice didn't come loud. It came slow, relentless, public, and maybe broken bar, just maybe. The real lesson is this: sometimes, the best revenge a broken bar is being too prepared to be messed with. If you've ever had to outsmart someone who crossed the line, tell us about it in the comments. And if you loved this drama, this is Anna Drama Neste, where justice grows 1 inch at a time. Smash that thanks button. Share this with someone who lives for real life twists. Because around here, the lawn's always greener. Broken bar when it hides a sting operation.